you can vote for Julie and know that you are sending a clear message and your vote will not be wasted. More than that, it will send a very clear message about the future that we want to build here and in the wider country. Julie.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good evening, everybody. Quiet group, aren't you? It's a little bit Peterborough to this evening. Well, by all means, give me what you got. So, interesting week so far. I've read with bemusement a stream of online commentary, beating of breasts, pounding of chests, as the media has made big of the fact that there are no female Cambridgeshire and Peterborough mayoral candidates, even though several parties and who knows how many independent candidates have yet to make an announcement. What those commentators are really asking, because they believe there's only one party that can win this race, is why there are not more female candidates in that particular party. Well, so what else have these men, and it has been men, been saying about women in our apparent absence? I've read many adjectives. As well as being able to do the job competently, we women have to bring all this other stuff to the party too. Passion, inspiration, excitement. The men, not so much, apparently. Apparently a woman can't just be the strongest candidate. Apparently a woman is never enough. So let me tell you about the Green Party. In the Green Party, people and all potential candidates are encouraged equally, however you identify your gender. I was not expecting to be standing here talking to you about being a woman. But as a big thing has been made of it this week, I'll tell you how to get more women candidates and trust the other parties in this process are listening. Mums and dads, take your daughters and your sons too to the polling station on the 4th of May and let them see the process in action. From a very early age, help them to understand that democracy is for everyone. My mum always took me, and in doing so, instilled in me that our right to be part of the political process was hard won and never to be taken for granted. She's absolutely right in that regard. I have to tell you, she's also a Tory, so she's not too impressed that I'm standing it. She'll be impressed to be name checked, maybe not so much so for other things I'm doing, but there we are, undeterred. Don't tell your daughters they can be whatever they want to be in life, because that isn't true for everyone. But do tell them that they can make a difference in the world. And as heavily flawed as our current electoral system is, your gender is not a barrier. You cannot have it all, no one can, but you can have this. I am not an anomaly. The Green Party is brimming with fearsome, awesome people, many of whom happen to be women. I would also like to pay tribute to the members of the Green Parties across Cambridgeshire for knowingly and enthusiastically choosing a candidate with a long-term chronic health condition. For the past 25 years, I have fought for exactly this inclusion in public life, and I am fiercely proud to stand for a party that regards me as a whole person. You are making this normal. There will be questions about whether a woman with multiple sclerosis from Peterborough can do this job. Like other candidates, I've spent years getting here, decades in fact. Decades spent serving my community, listening, representing. Presently, I'm parish councillor for 2 parishes, it's not illegal, 2 parishes in Peterborough, Alton Waterville and Alton Longville, and I am coordinator of Peterborough Green Party with my colleague Roger Proudfoot. All this and MS2. People fear illness, and I get that, But after 26 years together, MS and I are way past that stage. To the matters at hand then, the Tories want a low turnout. We know that. They're relying on a low turnout to win. Let's at least make them work for it. We didn't want this mayor's position to be created at all, but we are where we are. Whenever you vote Green, you vote for fair treatment of older and disabled people and people with long-term conditions, doctors, nurses, residential care workers and people who care for family at home, migrant workers on whose contribution Peterborough and Cambridgeshire depend, people from ethnic minorities who are our communities, people living with spiralling debt who can't see a way out of a situation they didn't create, people who work in our public services and in our small local businesses, single parent families, people who want to get to work safely, on time and without harming the environment using publicly owned transport and transport networks that work, people who live on council estates and those waiting for a suitable council house, people whose housing is not appropriate for their needs, people living on new housing estates with little in the way of community resources, people who fear that our police, fire and ambulance services are underfunded and unable to provide the level of support our communities need, people who believe the current government is getting away with murder in our countryside and rural areas, people who are still on the wrong side of the digital divide, and people who are being isolated and left behind by new technology, people on our society's margins who are struggling to find belonging, people who, for whatever reason, are forced to sleep rough, people who understand that Mars is not a viable second inhabitable planet and understand that we must preserve Earth's natural resources. People of every description of sexual orientation, people who wish to be married and people who don't, people who want their children to be able to attend high-quality local state-run schools, people who want their street to feel safe, people who want an end to death on our roads, including cats, dogs and wildlife, people who want a tree strategy that works for trees, as well as councils and developers, people who voted out and people who voted in, young people who want real jobs and apprenticeships, not unpaid dead-end internships, people who care about how we treat animals, people who don't want houses to be built on floodplains, people who want an end to modern-day slavery and sex trafficking across our region, people who don't want to pay additional charges for so-called extra council services like brown bins, people who've had enough of council inaction over fly tipping and noise nuisance, people who want to get from one part of the county to another via safe, affordable public transport, people who don't want to lose our trees and green spaces to new housing estates when former council office buildings stand empty, people who experience change in their mental health and deserve flexible whole-person services to support them, people who are unable to buy their own home due to a lack of available housing. We're nearly there, but I could go on all night. People in council or social housing who need to change accommodation, but they're told that nothing is available. People who live in streets where HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, threaten to destroy the sense of community. People who live in residential homes who no longer feel part of the wider community. People who prefer to cycle but don't feel safe on our streets. People affected by climate change, and we know that's everyone. People who are concerned about what poor air quality today means for their health tomorrow. And then I paused for breath. We'll publish our full manifesto in the coming weeks. 3 of the key areas that we are most concerned about are accountability, greater accountability and the creation of an assembly, much like the London Assembly, to scrutinise the work of the Mayor. We want a proportionally elected cabinet for Cambridgeshire, overseen by a proportionally elected county council. We want representatives of local communities, small businesses and union reps involved to scrutinise and to make policy suggestions. We want meetings to be widely publicised, imagine that, open to the public and webcast with minutes available online. As the mayoral budget and powers increase, so should the level of scrutiny and democratic involvement. Secondly, transport. A sustainable transport system for Cambridgeshire that works for people with 2 wheels and 2 legs, or 2 wheels and no legs, and is not all about the car. And finally, housing. A housing strategy that doesn't condemn people to live cheek by jowl in accommodation that fails hopelessly to meet their needs, harms the environment and makes community impossible. An increase in council and social housing in villages so that people born there can afford to continue to live there. Other parties' candidates may claim that they care about all of this stuff, but they're not showing it. A vote for the Green Party will send a powerful message to the establishment. We are the anti-establishment party. Whatever your political beliefs, don't just give this election away. Vote on the 4th of May. Thank you.